For sure, man. So I just want to get started, man. Like, just going back to that versus battle that you guys had with 112, and as I was listening to all the songs that you guys were playing, I was like, man, Jagged Edge has been doing this for a long time. And now that I look, it's your 10th studio album. So when you reflect back on your journey, like, what are you most proud of?
That's a good question, man. I think for me, and I don't like to speak for the whole group, but I think for me, one of the things I'm most proud of is just being able to be consistent. I think, we come from an era where so many acts were, producer driven. So for us to be able to do that for ourselves, and as well as coming from Social Death, a lot of people thought that JD had the recipe to what Jagged Edge was, not understanding that, we've always written our own music and been producing our own music for a long time as well. So I think just being able to be consistent, I think when you go back through the 10 albums, whatever your thoughts about Jagged Edge are, one thing you can say is that that sound that we've created is consistent. It's not like it sounded one way on the first album and different on the second album. And sometimes, when you have producer-driven acts, you kind of see that inconsistency where, the sound is like this at a certain point and the sound is like that at a certain point, which, we like to be able to go back and forth as far as, like maybe an old school feel to what's new and fresh, but at the same time, we always want to give you that Jagged Edge sound. It's something we work hard to create, so we try our best to deliver that. So just going back through 10 albums, I think the consistency is something that I'm pretty proud of.
That's amazing, man. I'll tell you what I'm proud of is when I listen to this album, it's still the same four voices that we were introduced to back when you guys first came out. And the other thing that I'm really proud of and really I admire about you guys is that you guys have consistently put out music throughout your career up until now. Like a lot of our favorites that came from your era, they've stopped putting out music. They're just touring. They're just relying on that catalog.
Right.
And nothing wrong with that. They're still pushing, still creating music. Like, what's that conversation like amongst the team, amongst the group to continue pushing?
It's something that we really focus on because, especially me and my brother, I think everybody knows we do kind of like the bulk of the songwriting. So there are many times we've sat around, together and we've said, my favorite groups from the 90s or the 80s or whatever you have it, whether you look at New Edition or Guy or you look at Jodeci, Boyz II Men, it seems like they all got to 3 or 4 albums and just kind of stopped making new music, you know what I mean? So we always kind of caution ourselves against that, just not wanting to be like some of our favorite groups. I always thought it was interesting that it seems that groups get to this 3rd or 4th and, sometimes even, 5th or 6th, but then it's almost like they have no interest on making new music. And for us, part of us wanting to ever be in the music industry was because we love to make music. The touring is great. We love that. We love to be, face to face with our fans and feel that appreciation they have for the work that we put in and for the music and for just, the time that we put in. But there's nothing like, for us at least, being able to go in and make new music. So that's something we've always tried to caution ourselves against. Was ending up like some of our favorite groups in that, and from that standpoint.
Yeah, I'm 100% with you because I feel like when I go to a show, obviously I want to hear the hits. The nostalgia is great, but the best experience for me is seeing my favorite artists come up with a new project and then listening and loving the song and then being able to see them perform those new songs on tour, right, in a concert. So I appreciate the fact that you guys are still pushing. But, one of the things that has happened recently, you guys, over the last 2 albums, I would say, have truly gone independent from not only making the music, but also being in charge of everything from the marketing to even putting out the music. And I know, we joked about it back and forth about just how there were a couple of pushbacks with this album. Just, for the fans that might not understand, what kind of goes into releasing an album and what did you learn from this whole experience?
It's funny you said that, man, because it's something I try to tell fans, number one, look, when we were under major label systems who run like pipelines, we still had albums pushed back. It's just part of the record industry to a certain extent. But for us as well, I think like what happened with Layover is when we people don't understand with Layover. When we found out that we were doing Unsung, and they finally gave us a date once the whole piece was put together, and they said, okay, we're gonna air this on such and such date. We took that, and they probably told us that about 2 weeks out from when they were about to air it, 2 to 3 weeks. We took that 2 to 3 weeks, and we put together an album in 3 weeks. So as much as we were, happy and proud that we were able to do that, we rushed some things just trying to meet that date. So for us, Layover was just to accompany the Unsung and let people know who saw the Unsung that yes, we still out here making music, and we still feel viable in that sense. So when it came to a Jagged Love Story, our goal was to put it out 2 years ago. But like you said, being the label, we had a certain couple samples that we needed to get cleared, to be honest with you. And that, without a major label, without their pipeline, if it were, without having that pipeline to your use and being available for you, some things just fall on you. So we were trying to get a couple samples clear, and that really literally almost took a full year to really work it out, first to get in contact with them, then to get it worked out. Then there was some stipulations they had, and we kind of went back and forth on some things, on some points about it, and then we kind of finally got to an agreement, and that's how we were able to get to the point that we are now. So we had that as an issue, but at the same time, because we did Layover and didn't shoot even one video for it, we figured let's get some videos out here, So we took it and we shot. First we did Close Thing to Perfect, then we did Genie, then we did Decided recently, and now we're getting ready to do Seasons. So we just wanted to make sure we had the right visual content to go with the project and everything. So when you realize what an overtaking this is, because I don't like the word undertaking, I think it's an overtaking. When you realize
right.
the word, when you realize what it really goes into this, and how it much work goes into this, and how much how many different processes there are. Before you know it, another year had passed. Trust me, we didn't plan to make it this long, but it's just the way, as well as, the whole time until COVID, we were steadily on the road too. So it was just like,
yep.
Okay, we're on the road every weekend, Thursday to Sunday in a lot of cases. You come home, you take a day, you in the studio maybe Tuesday, you go Tuesday to Thursday, and then you back on the road. So it was just so many things that, when you have a major label handling all these things for you, it almost seems effortless and you don't think about it. But when you put it all on your own shoulders, man, sometimes it is a lot more work than we bargained for. But at the same time, we're getting that experience. And, I think the next album that we drop is going to go a lot smoother and won't be pushed back for 2 years. I can guarantee you that.
I'll hold you to that because, Bryan, I told us probably about a year ago that you guys were dropping a double album. We waited a year to finally out, and it's crazy because when Wingo told us that it was a double album, that was such a shocker for us because, like I said, no one's really putting out albums anymore, and here you guys are putting out 31 songs. Like, how did you guys kind of approach this? Because, like, for me, I grew up listening to you guys from way back, and you guys would have, like, 12 or 14 songs, and your project, Baby Heartbreak, Baby Making Project, like, it was a very cohesive and almost, like, kind of told a story from top to bottom. With 31 songs, was that kind of the same approach, or was the approach to make 31 great records? Like, what did you guys do with that?
Well, that was the approach. But I think that we started to almost feel guilty in a sense, like, damn, we still got people waiting, man. So every other month we got to give them a few more. And before we knew it, we were already at about 18, 19. Then we got to about 22. We said, well, we might want to make it a double album. So honestly, it's really almost a triple album when you get to the point that you got 31. But we just kept feeling like, I've never seen an artist really take the fans with them through the whole process of making a record, which, every album we had recorded more than what we put on the record. We said to ourselves this time, once we started listening to the whole body of work, it was like, let's just give them all of it. I mean, and there are some that still didn't make the cut, but I'm just saying, we just felt like as long as they've been waiting and as dedicated as our fans have been to us, let's just give them, almost a glimpse into the process of what we do when we make an album. And a lot of times, if you got 10, 12 songs, you've recorded 60. If 7, we've had albums where we've recorded that many records and still put out 12 or 13 or 14. You see what I'm saying? So we felt like let's just give them a bigger chunk of what we've been doing. They've been waiting so long, And like I said, when we went back and listened to it, we felt like it was cohesive, and we just felt like, man, we got a lot of good records, and we just felt like let's just give them to the people,
Right, that's amazing. Now, like I said, Brian, I come from an era where it's 12 or 14 songs per album, so I'm able to really digest those records in one sitting. How would you recommend, a fan to listen to this entire body of work? 31 songs, as you know, is a long time. That's almost 2 hours worth of music. Do you recommend that they listen to the whole thing all the way through? Should they split it? Like, how would you recommend them listen to it?
I would, honestly. There's a guy who posted something about this the other day, and one thing he said was that he was skeptical about doing the same thing, but he said the records were so good and they flowed together so good. He said it was one of the best hour 50-something minutes that he has spent in a long time, and I felt like, number one, thank him for that compliment, but I felt the same way. Like, you can break it up if you want to break it up and do it in 2-3 different sentences if you want, but I do feel like one record flows right into the next, and I think that's another one of our strengths is sequencing an album. I think me and my brother are pretty good at sequencing an album and putting the right song after the right song, and then the next one after that and after that. So I think, with the way the album flows, I think you should just get in the car and take a ride, or sit around with your lady, or however you prefer to do it. But I think you should just kind of digest it all at once.
Right, I love it. So on the album, of course, you got production from JD, you got production from B. Cox, but a lot of the album you and Brandon did by yourself, and that's one thing that really amazed me. I mean, you guys have produced in the past as well, but for the longest time, we've known you as great songwriters, but to get into that production side, like, when did that start, and how did you guys get into that?
Well, I'm going to tell you the truth, man. It's been a process that started, let's say, Jagged Love Story album. People don't understand. One of the reasons me and my brother's production has grown is because, a lot of people come into the business, like if you take a Alicia Keys or you take a John Legend, they came into the business already being able, knowing how to play the piano and just certain instruments, or Prince and all the instruments he could play. Me and my brother taught ourselves how to play the keyboard while being an act in this business, while being on the road constantly, while, still making records constantly. We taught ourselves how to play different instruments and things. And so just the progression of learning those instruments, we're finally at the point where we feel comfortable in what we do as musicians. So I think it's showing in the production, and it's just showing in the growth of our production.
That's amazing. And then speaking of sonically on this album, I noticed, there's some classic JE records, like Seasons is one of them. But then there's also some records where it's a little more modern, like Genie was a little more modern, Close to the Perfect. Like, how do you kind of balance these sounds? Because, as you know, you have fans that have come up with you guys since the 90s. And, as you know, Brian, there's a lot of 90s fans that aren't willing to adapt to today's sound. Like, how do you kind of balance that?
Well, it's funny because one of the reviews of Layover, a writer said, he said, these guys blend what was with what is better than anybody. So we took that as a compliment, number one, but then it just kind of made us focus, okay, we can do some of what's going on right now and still blend it with what we do best and make it some type of a hybrid, if you will, but, make it where it's not totally unfamiliar to our old listeners, as well as grab some new listeners. Because it's funny, a lot of times we get DM videos and things of our longtime diehard fans playing the music with their kids, and their kids love the music too. So we felt like we didn't want to just leave out the younger generation, and we definitely didn't want to leave out our diehard fans. So what can you do besides that is just try your best to bridge the gap. And I think, one thing I'll say is a lot of people knock a lot of the younger generation of R&B, and me and my brother, we're not like that. I enjoy what I believe that they could be a little better guided with some of their messages in the music, but overall, I like what a lot of the young kids do. So to just isolate, what they do and just isolate the sound that they come up with like it's just trash, it's not something we were willing to do. We wanted to incorporate it.
Yeah, and I think you guys are the perfect people for that. Like, Jagged Edge to me has always been the cool group. Like, guys can listen to them and rock with them without feeling embarrassed. And it's okay to be vulnerable. And I see you guys doing that. You guys were on Jodeci's debut album as well. So I just love that you guys are giving them the blueprints of what you guys put together.
Absolutely. I mean, that's always been our goal, to be honest with you. We understand that when you sing in certain messages and you sing them, passionately like we try to do, that you're going to get some women on your side. But we've always tried to make it where it's like, we don't want no dudes, no guys to feel guilty about listening to us. We don't want no guys to feel guilty about coming to a Jagged Edge show, which is why you don't see us doing too much bumping and grinding and all that on it. We don't do that. We come and we just sing hard and we get off the stage. You know what I mean? So that's our thing. You know what I'm saying?
Right. So, Bryan, one of the things I noticed on the Layover album, and this one as well, it's the use of Autotune. Now, I've seen other interviews where, a lot of it is just creatively, you guys feel like it's a creative platform for you guys. Like, how do you feel like that Autotune enhances the Jagged Edge sound, or do you feel like, or is it something that you have to do to stay viable in today's market? Just talk about the use of Autotune.
I don't feel like, to be honest, I don't feel like we have to do it. It's funny, we were talking to Pleasure P about this as well, and he's from Pretty Ricky. He's a diehard Jagged Edge fan, and we love him for that. And he was just saying the same thing, and my brother's answer was, bro, we can do what the F we want to do, number one. And it wasn't a contentious argument. It was a funny, conversation. But he's like, we can do what the F we want to do. And the point of it is this for us. I think that would be one of those things where you just ignoring the younger generation. I think when people come see us live, there's not a person who's been to a Jagged Edge show who don't know we really can sing. It's not. I don't think that's a mystery to people. I mean, and if it is, then I don't know what shows and what y'all been watching or listening to. But so I feel like that was one of those things where we would be almost throwing away what the young generation does like it's trash. So when you look at the auto-tune thing, I think this generation has claimed their right to it. They have proven that, hey, we like this sound. We don't care what nobody else says. That's what they like. So for us to just ignore that and still want to garner new fans, I think that would be kind of, dumb on our parts. But, like I said, you come see us live at any time and you can see us sing those same records without anything, and we always have. So we don't feel like it hinders us in any kind of way, as well as I don't know if people understand now that some of the vocal settings that come in Pro Tools, they aren't necessarily auto-tuned. There's a sound now that Pro Tools provides that feels like auto-tune, but it's just a vocal package. And I don't think people totally understand it. You got to be into production and studio and all that to understand that. But it's not the same as like when T-Pain came out doing, But then at the same time, I look at it like this too. On Jagged Little Thrill, and then even on the Hard album, we had used some auto-tune on a few different songs, and I felt like we were ahead of the game doing that. So it's not our fault that then T-Pain came and staked his claim so hard that people almost thought that he came up with it when we had been doing it 4 or 5 years before that. So we felt like it's part of what we do anyway. But yes, I mean, we're going to come and still, come to your city, sing live, and sing our guts out. And if you can't tell when we get off the stage that we really can sing, I don't know what to say.
Right. No, because when I initially listened to this album, the first thing I noticed was the auto-tune, and it kind of scared me a little bit. But as I've been continuing to listen to it now, I can still recognize Jagged Edge's sound, like you and Brandon still, right? The melody still sounds like Jagged Edge, so that makes me feel a little better.
Right. I mean, we try not to be overbearing with it, but like I said, it's something this generation has proven, hey, we like this sound. We don't care what you old heads say. This is what we like. So I didn't want to just ignore that,
Right. Fair enough. One record that I'm really hoping you guys put out as a single, and maybe I'm going to be the reason why, but, on J.E. Heartbreak 2, Love Comes Down, I really wish that you guys would have pushed that a little more because I felt like that was a smash. But on this album, How to Fix It, with the Jodeci, sample. Right. I feel like that was the one. Like, just talk about that one.
Well, that's what we were going for. We get compared to groups all the time, of course, but what we wanted to do with that song was, number one, recreate the Jodeci feel without necessarily going and doing a straight Jodeci jack of the whole song. So we wanted to incorporate little pieces where you could understand, okay, yes, this is some Jodeci stuff, but we still wanted to write it in a way that Jagged Edge would write and sing it. And even the ad-lib style of the record, we went a little more Jodeci-ish with it, just because, that we can't ignore the influence of the Jodeci, the Boys and Men, the H-Town,
yep.
even New Edition. We can't ignore how that helped shape us as artists and musicians and songwriters and as a group. So we did want to pay a little homage, as well as Casey and JoJo. Man, they're good friends of ours. We got major love for those guys. And, you know, like you said, I mean, I think Jodeci is such an epic group that it's a lot of people who can't even pull off a Jodeci style record. And I always felt like we could if we wanted to. So that was kind of our attempt to show people if we wanted to go in there and sing that hard and do all those things, we could do it. It's just not necessarily our style all the time.
Yeah. I mean, that record right there, amazing. And Bryan, I want to take it back here and just quickly go through your discography here. I really want to start off just talking about your journey, but on the debut album, I feel like this is one of the best Jagged Edge records ever, The Rest of Our Lives. And I love it because Kyle has that falsetto solo at the end. It's an amazing record. Like, just talk about putting that one together.
It's funny that you said that, bro. So the story about that record, it's tied to some producers called Track Team. And now they split up into Carl Breeding and Ken Sambro, right? But the way we got our deal as like when we were young, first we got our first deal from Michael Bivins, right? And then after that, it fell through. So after it fell through, we had to get with some guys who we thought were great producers and put together a demo, because we got our first deal in high school, we had never done a demo. So we got with these guys, and they helped us really bring out our vision to a point that we knew when we put this tape in you know, CEO's hands, that they would be at least say, this don't sound like nobody but these. Like, they don't sound like anybody else. And that's something we were always trying to be, you know, cognizant of, like, make sure we don't sound like anybody. And so we did that. And that song, Rest of Our Lives, we had a 4-song demo, and these guys, Track Team, did it. So that song, The Rest of Our Lives and Ready and Willing, was the only records that was produced by the same guys who basically did our demo to get us our deal. So the funny thing about that record is, you know, we had done some other records with them, and they were a little more bump and grindish, if you will, but we always knew that that's not necessarily the route we wanted to go, just falling into sex records. And we didn't really want to do that. So when we got with him to make the records for the album, we tried to put together something, you know, really meaningful, and that was our first stab at it. And when we did that record, we knew it was an amazing record, man. And it's funny that you said it, because it's one of our favorite records of all time. Like, to this day, there's a few, and it's funny, you just named 2 of them, but there's a few records that to this day we still talk about. Man, let's just go ahead and put this out, even though we talk about that with The Rest of Our Lives. We talk about that with Love Come Down, and we talk about that with Pretty Everything. We're like, they are old albums, but since we're doing our own thing, let's just put them out. Let's just shoot videos and put them out. And we may still do that, honestly, because, I mean, those guys, Track Team, they really helped us create our sound from the beginning. And it's funny because we had not done another record with them the whole rest of our career until this album. So that same guy who did that record, he did Math on this record.
Wow. Well, Bryan, I'm going to throw a couple more at you here just so you can add to the list. Remedy has to be a single at some point. Questions has to be a single. And I Don't Wanna.
You on the money, bro. You picking the right one.
You know, with the song like Rest of Our Lives, you know, you hear Kyle with the solo falsetto, you hear Wingo doing the bridge. Like, as songwriters, you and Brandon, like, how do you guys decide who sings leads, who does backs? Because, like, I've talked to Kyle and Wingo. They're the ultimate team players, and they understand their roles. But you guys, as the songwriters, how do you guys kind of construct it?
Well, first, I wanna highlight that even more, because we feel the same way. This group couldn't have made it without those 2 guys being the best team players, cheerleaders at times. It's times when sometimes, you know, me and my brother don't feel like studio. We don't feel like making. These guys are the best cheerleaders, the best, you know, the most humble 2 partners we could ever ask for. This group cannot be what it is without those 2 guys. I don't care what people think about what we do musically, right? So, you know, like you said, I mean, to be honest, I would like to get them on even more records, but me and my brother are in the studio so much that we can't even expect them to come, you know, as much as we're in there. We're in there all the time. So they would have no life like we don't if they were in the studio with us all the time. So whenever they come, we just sprinkle them here, sprinkle them there. Okay, we'll go to another song that we did last week. Hey, throw Wingo on this part. So, you know, and we always try to pick the parts that we think would fit Wingo's voice best and the things that people don't understand. Kyle is a great singer. People just don't understand because he is such a team player. But he's got one of the best falsettos that you'll ever hear. Like, I feel like he honestly could rival a Maxwell or anybody else who sings in that register over and over. He just, like I said, like you said, I mean, he's a team player. He doesn't look at his role as something that has to be, you know, up front or showcasing, because he feels like he's going to showcase what he does anyway. You know, so that, like you said, I mean, they're the best team players we could have ever asked for, man. And you know, when I look at other groups and how, you know, every group comes out and they tell you the fact that they're brothers, and then you see later on, no, not so much.
Right.
With us, we really are. We four dudes who we hung out every day anyway. You know, before we ever came out, we were together every day. So us being able to make it this long in this business is a testament to our real friendship and our real brotherhood. With us, it's nothing fake about it.
Yeah, absolutely. So shout out to you four for keeping it together so many years. But Bryan, I want to fast forward here. J.E. Heartbreak. This is obviously the album that everyone loves, a classic album. But I want to take it even before the making of that album and just that time in between the first and second one. I know you and Brandon spent a lot of time at Noontime, met up with D. Cox, Teddy Bishop, that whole crew. Like, what did that time, how did that time help with, developing you guys as songwriters to the point where you guys could have a massive album like J.E. Heartbreak? Like, just take me back to that era.
Okay, well, it's funny. The whole Noontime thing, when we got to Noontime, we had Ryan Glover, who's a really good friend of ours and always been a big supporter of Jagged Edge. We saw him one night. We were out, at a lounge or a club or something, and he introduced himself to us when we first met him. He told us who he was, and he was like, y'all come down. I got a studio. We came down. He said he had some producers, all those things. So at that time, his producers, everything for Noontime was happening at one time. All his main producers, Diddy started scooping them up, and other people started scooping them up, and L.A. Reid and them, So everybody was just kind of scooping his producers up. So we came down there, and all the producers they had, they didn't really have songwriters. So me and my brother, feeling like we were already pretty good songwriters, we came down just to match their producers' fire, if you would, So we started writing with Jazzy, we wrote with Teddy, we wrote with B. But really, we didn't write with B, honestly. At first, it was really just Jazzy and Teddy and J-Dub, right? So after a while, they started getting so busy, and they were in such high demand that we said to Ryan one day, we was like, and we were all, we were selling songs. We had done Absolute's first 2 or 3 singles. Me and Duran had written a song for Absolute. We played some songs on Idea. We did Creepin'. We did some songs for another group, Profile. We had done a song for Faith Evans. We had done a song for Tony Braxton. We were even working on some other Vandro stuff. So as a whole, everything that Noontime was doing, producers and writers, we were selling it. So it got to the point that the producers got so busy that we came to Ryan one day. We were like, look, man, just give us a guy who can play keyboards. Because we felt like we were producers in our own right. We just couldn't play keyboards at the time. So we said, just give us somebody to play the keyboards and watch what we do. And that's exactly what he did. They had been using Brian Cox, basically just engineering sessions. I don't think they truly understood how talented Brian Cox was. So they gave him to us. Like, hey, just take B. He wanted our engineers, just take B. The first week, we did about maybe 10 songs in the first week, and about 3 of those made J.E. Heartbreak. So from that point on, we just kept working. Right, we just kept working, and to be honest, that whole J.E. Heartbreak album, we did within a matter of 2 to 3 weeks, which is why it was such a short in-between time from the first album to the second album, was that we had already been working with B. Cox. So when we went to J.D., we had basically delivered him 10, 11 songs right then, and he liked them all. But then, of course, it was his label and his production banner, so he still wanted to do some songs. But we had basically brought him a finished project. He came in, did a few fast songs, did Let's Get Married, and Promise, and we put the record out, and it did what it did. But it really just came from us getting in there with B. Cox, and which is why to this day when we make records with B. Cox, we go with an even split, because even B. Cox will tell you that we produced those records as much as he did, even though we couldn't play.
Right.
So now that we can actually play, it's just, we just go in there, we just have a great time together, just making beautiful music, man. That's how it goes.
Yeah. Amazing. And Brian told me that you guys also were like working early with Nivea at the time at Noontime, right?
Right. We worked with Nivea first. We worked with Ashanti first. We worked with Sierra with Jazzy Faye first. We of course worked with LaToya Luckett first. I mean, we worked with Tank. We were one of the first people to work with Tank down there as well. So that's what I was saying. It seemed like everything that came through there, once we all put our hands on it, next thing you know, they had major deals and we're doing major things. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Amazing. Now, Brian, I got to talk about this. This is probably the most amazing accomplishment for Jagged Edge here is I'm looking at your discography from J.E. Heartbreak all the way up until Baby Making Project. That's like 7 albums or so in like a span of 7 years. It was like a crazy run that you guys had, just nonstop, an album every year or every other year. Like, just reflect back on that time. Like, that was crazy.
I think, one thing we always saw, or me and my brother always thought was some of the downfalls of artists was that because the music business, can afford you so many different material things and afford you so many different privileges that sometimes we as artists don't treat it like a job. Me and my brother never wanted to fall into that pitfall, into that trap where we felt like, for a long time we would get up every single day and treat it like a 9 to 5. Now, we wouldn't necessarily be in there at 9 in the morning, but every day, even if we went out the night before, even if we had the trap, whatever it was, if we were in town, we would get up the next day and go to studio. So we always just, and that's something my dad was, and even Wingo's dad, they always told us things like, you can't be afraid of the hard work. If you want something and you want some type of success, you better understand the hard work comes with it. And we always took heed to those words. So, like I said, we've always treated it like a 9 to 5, and in order to do that, you got to get up and put your work in, and put your hours in, and put your time in, and bring your creative mind every time you try to step into that studio, and that's what we try to do.
Yeah, man. Like, just looking back at that now, like, that grind, it's just amazing to see, and, I mean, you guys are still doing it today, so, I mean, much props to you guys for that. Crazy.
You, it's a blessing.
So, absolutely. So, Brian, that's all that I've really had for you here. Is there anything that you'd like to add?
No, man, I'll just, we appreciate guys like you, man. We appreciate the support we get from our fans, and just want to tell everybody, we feel it, and we love y'all right back, and we ain't going to let y'all down. We already midway through the 11th album. I know we just gave you 31, but we don't stop. We really don't know how to stop, man. I'll be honest with you, we really don't know how to stop. Every day we're going to still get up and do some work, and at the end of a period of time, we're going to give you that work. And we hope that you appreciate it, that you love it. And, I just want to say, just thank y'all, man. And thank you to the Heavenly Father, because like I said, it's a blessing for us to even be here. It's a blessing for us to have these talents, and we do not take them for granted.
Wow. I mean, not to even just, like, chime in, but, like, that 11th album already, like, that's crazy. Just tell me about that. Like, what are we going to hear on that?
Well, we're going to put a little more focus towards mids and ups. So we realize we've never given people a lot of mids or ups. But this album, we're going to put a little more focus in. But we still, for us, it's always about finding that fine line in between it, though. So we still want them to feel sexy and sensual, if you will, but we still want to give people a little more something to groove to. Like, even the songs like Can't Help It on the album or Here Goes My Number, it's going to be more in that kind of a vein for a good portion of the album. You know what I mean? And we're definitely not giving you 31 this time, but we're going to give you, we're going to give you a good bit of work.
Gotcha. Sounds exciting. And Brian, before I get out of here, I just got to say, like, I got to thank you for coming together with 112 for the record, both of us. That was one of our favorites when it came out that year. So I got to thank you for that.
Man, I appreciate you for saying that, man. We got another one coming. Really, we've got 2 other records with them. The only problem with the one we wanted to do is that when we did the record, it was the full 112. So until they get back together or reconcile, we kind of just felt like we would be cheating the fans to put it out without them actually being, a group right now. So we pull them that they get it back together. We talk to them all the time and tell them how much they mean to the fans, and no disrespect to the 2 new guys in any kind of way, because they working hard as well. But people want to see Q, Mike, Slim, Duran. That's just what it is, and they shouldn't take that as an insult.
All right, Bryan, man, I appreciate your time. So much history here and so much more to go. So, I mean, just keep it up. You got our support, so just keep it up, man.
Thank you, bro. I appreciate it, man, bro. I appreciate it, man, bro. I appreciate it, man, bro.